Hello and welcome to this week's video session on one of the important techniques that can be used or applied in both Agile as well as in a traditional or waterfall style project management. And it is a technique called Shu-Ha-Ri. Now, unless you are familiar with the Japanese language, this term or this word Shu-Ha-Ri might be new for you. During this session, we will cover the meaning of these three words and what it means. But more importantly, we will also see how we can apply this Shu-Ha-Ri technique while managing the projects. So let's go into the agenda for today. This is our agenda for today. We will start first with understanding the Shu-Ha-Ri concept. Next, we will see how this Shu-Ha-Ri concept can be applied in project management. And I would like to cover a scenario or an example of applying this Shu-Ha-Ri concept with a real life project scenario. There will be few challenges and pitfalls that you probably need to be aware of with regards to Shu-Ha-Ri, and we will cover those in the later part of our session. I would also like to share some of the points to overcome these challenges and then apply successfully this Shu-Ha-Ri technique in your project scenarios. My name is Ashutosh Deshmukh, and I have more than 16 years of experience in software development work and project management in general. I am both PMI PMP and PMI ACP certified professional. And after I completed my PMI ACP certification back in 2021, I have created the practice test or mock test for both PMI PMP and PMI ACP exams. These courses are now taken by more than 900 plus aspirants across the globe on the Udemy website, and I have an overall 4.6 Udemy instructor rating on the Udemy platform. So, if you're planning to prepare for the PMP or ACP certification, you may want to check my practice test on these certifications. I will add the link for the same in the video. Now, with that cover, let's dive into the agenda for our today's session. And we will start with understanding the Shu-Ha-Ri. So, let's first understand the meaning of these three words. Okay. These actually represents the concept from the Japanese martial art. These three words, Shu, Ha, and Ri, represents the three stages of learning and mastering of a skill. Now, this skill could be anything. It could be, let's say, learning a programming language, or it could be learning a swimming, or it could be learning a car driving, or whatever. Although the origin of this term is in the martial arts, this is just not restricted only to the martial arts as such. Otherwise, we would not have been studying about these concepts in the project management session. So over the years, this term is abstracted and it can be now applied to any skills and any learning, basically. So a couple of other things to highlight with regards to this Shu-Ha-Ri concept. First of all, I find it very interesting that this concept of Shu-Ha-Ri fits very well and aligns nicely with some of the agile principles and values. For example, if you are an agile practitioner, you probably know that the changes in a project will be inevitable on an agile project. And as an agile project team, you probably have to be open to these changes. Now, this Shu-Ha-Ri model kind of fits very well into the alignment with this agile value, especially the values such as the openness to the change. And we will see that as we explore more about this concept. That's why it's important to learn this concept for your agile certification. One other thing that I find very interesting with regards to agile is, and that is something you probably already might know, and that is the fact that agile is not one size fits all framework, right? So for example, say Scrum, right? Although Scrum is very popular, Scrum is not suitable for every single team. So some teams may find Kanban methodology or extreme programming approach to be more effective compared to Scrum, right? So Agile is not one size fits all. And we can say that this Shu-Ha-Ri model can actually help the team to adopt to the new realities And again, we will see how this can be, helpful in more detail as we explore more into the coming slides. So let's begin our understanding with regards to the meaning of those three words, right? So the first word here is shu, which means obey or follow the rules. The second word ha means break the rule or bend the rules. And the third word re basically means be the rule or create or make your own rules. Okay, so the important takeaway here is the sequence in which these three stages are appearing. So shu comes first, then ha, and then re. In other words, we can say the learner has to learn the fundamentals or obey the existing rule first before those rules can be bended or broken, and before the learner can create their their own rules, right? So the first stage is shu, and at this stage the project team or individual who is learning any new skill begins with obeying or following a well established rule. So this is like the stage 1. Here the focus is on learning the fundamentals of the game, understanding the basic techniques, understanding the fundamental practices. And here the focus is on strict discipline and conformity to the existing rules. The team is, you can say, almost blindly following the traditional wisdom or obeying the well established learning path. The team is not doing any experiments. There are no experimentation happening here. And the team or the individual who is learning the new skill, they are strictly following a well established rules and regulations. Now, once the team finishes the first stage and develop the good fundamental understanding of the rules and techniques and practices, the team or individual can then transition into the next phase, which is called ha phase. At this stage, the learner can start deviating from the existing rules, and they may start doing the things in a slightly different way, maybe in a much better way or in a more efficient way. This is the stage where learner can do multiple experiments and learn new and better ways of doing the things. The learner can do that because they have developed sufficient understanding about the rationale behind the rules which they were obeying or following in the previous stage. Now, the thing to call out here is the learner is not breaking the rule blindly here or without knowing the repercussions. The whole point here is the team can bend only those rules whose details are learnt and well known to the team inside out, right? So that's the main takeaway here. Then come the third stage, which represents the mastery of the learner into that skill. Now, because the learner has understood the fundamentals in full detail, which was stage 1, and then has experimented by breaking the few rules and learned even learn even further and learn their learn their skills better, they can now create their own ways or their own rules. Now, this is the stage of innovation and autonomy. The team or the individual by this time has become expert in a specific area or in a specific skill, so much so that they can autonomously apply the skills in a masterful way and can create their own recipes of success, which may be followed by the others, right? So these represents the three words ShuHaRi and their meaning. Moving on, and this is the crux of this video, right? Like, let's understand how this concept of ShuHaRi can be useful in a project constant context. So imagine you are working as a part of an agile team, maybe in some leadership role such as a product owner or an agile project manager or as a scrum master, and you wanted to understand what is the current level of expertise of your project team. Let's say you newly joined the team and you don't know much about the current composition and skill level of the project team. So This Shu-Ha-Ri concept or technique can be helpful in understanding the current level of your team. But how? Let's take an example. Let's say you are working with a team who is just following the basic fundamental we can say techniques in a cloud project, right? They are not doing any experiment. What they are doing basically is they are looking at the official documents, and they are basically following whatever is suggested in the guides and the manuals, and they are basically following the well established rules. Now this is an observation, right? And with this observation and with the knowledge of the Shu-Ha-Ri model, you will know that you are working with a team which is in the very, you can say, first stage of their learning curve, or they are in a shoe stage, right? Now, with this understanding in place, you can actually set the right expectations from this team and its deliverables, isn't it? This current level of team's expertise can also be super helpful for you if you are working in a servant leader role, right? So, as a servant leader of your current project team, you can tailor your leadership style depending on the current level of your team's skill, isn't it? For example, let's say if you are working with a team who is creating their own rules and doing a lot of innovation in a confident manner, you know that this team is currently in a third stage of a skill mastery, or the re stage, right? And hence you as a servant leader would want to further encourage this team to do more innovation, and you should probably create an environment to give them the autonomy so that the team can take the bold decisions, because this team is in the third stage, or in the restage, and they have already learned the basics and have done enough experiments that they are now enjoying the innovation and enjoying the autonomy, right? But on the other hand, if you find that the team is trying to do the innovation but has not yet learned the basic fundamental skills which are needed for the project work, you can instead encourage this team to first learn the basics, isn't it? You can encourage this team to follow the rules, obey the rules, and develop the mastery on the skills which are needed for this project first, before they can dive into the innovation. So knowledge of this Shu-Ha-Ri model can help you tailor your leadership style accordingly. The third point is about continuous improvement. You probably might be doing the sprint retrospective, for example, which is one of the meeting in Agile or in Scrum, in which the team regularly looks at their own process and work on the areas of improvement in future. Now this is the concept of continuous improvement in Agile. With this Shu-Ha-Ri model, it also encourages the practitioners to challenge the status quo and find the better ways of working, thus promoting a culture of learning and continuous improvement. This is one more illustration of the fact that this Shu-Ha-Ri model is aligned beautifully with some of the principles and values of Agile. Now, how can the team apply this continuous integration with a Shu-Ha-Ri model? Well, let's say during the second stage, after the team has grasped the basic fundamentals, the team members can perform multiple experiments to understand better ways of working. And once these better ways of working are found, those can be applied in the future iterations or sprints of the project. And in this way the team can transition from the current state to a better future state, right? This is an example of how the team can push themselves from the current state to the better future state, thus demonstrating the continuous improvement characteristic. Okay, so let's consider an example scenario here, and I have just tried to shown it with the pictorial representation. So let's consider an example where, imagine that there is a project team which is working on transitioning from a traditional or a waterfall style project management into a more agile project work. So they are learning the agile or the scrum principles and practices for the very first time, right? So let's see how this Shu-Ha-Ri model can apply for this team and for this learning exercise. What this team can do is, in the very first stage, which is we are calling it as a Shu stage, they are basically adopting the scrum which is perhaps the most popular agile project methodology, and they are following the principles of Scrum as per the Scrum guide, right? The team conducts the usual stand up meeting, let's say for 15 minutes, and follow the format for the daily stand up as per the Scrum guide. What does the Scrum guide says about the daily stand up? It says you ask three questions, right? What have you done yesterday, what you will do today, and if there are any impediments or blockers, right? So that's the format, and that's what this team follows as it is as per the Scrum guide. So this team is also doing the sprint planning meeting or sprint review meeting exactly as prescribed by the Scrum guide. So they are not doing any experiment, they are just following what is mentioned in the Scrum guide. And they are starting with learning the agile practices as per the well defined learning path, which in this case is the Scrum guide. So now the team, after few weeks, let's say, and few months, will become more familiar with some of these common practices of Scrum, and the team is now in a position to do some experiments on some of these areas. Take an example there, right? Like, let's say this team is finding this 2 week long sprint as too long. So instead of doing the sprint for 2 weeks, this team can very well decide to do the sprint only for 1 week. Now this is an experiment, right? This experiment of changing the sprint length may or may not be as per the Scrum guide, but the point here is the team understand that they can, and now they should, tailor the sprint duration depending on the needs of the project. And there is no need to strictly follow the Scrum guide as is, if that doesn't make sense for this team's requirement. But please make a note here that the team is not blindly changing the sprint length here. They are doing that only after multiple observations, and because after these multiple observations the team realized that the 2 week long sprint length is no more suitable for their requirement, and that is why they are changing the sprint duration. So it's not a blind change, is what I'm trying to say here. So let's say after a few more iterations and sprints, the team is now more mature, and they feel like they can utilize some of the concepts from other agile project methodologies, such as, let's say, Kanban, or some of the practices which are followed in extreme programming, and they can blend those practices from other methodologies into their way of working in order to make their project deliverables even more efficient. So this is the stage of innovation, and the team is may be able to pull off these different innovation ideas at this stage, because this team has transitioned from the earlier stages into the re stage, which is the last stage, where they are making their own rules and processes which best fit their project needs, right? So this is the last stage. Now that we have learnt about the Shu-Ha-Ri model and how it can be applied in a project context, let's sort of conclude our today's session by understanding some of the potential challenges that you may face while applying this model, and what are some of the ways to overcome these challenges. Okay, the I guess the first and the foremost challenge would be misunderstanding the stages, right? So a few teams may tend to do jump to the innovation stage directly before understanding the fundamental concepts in that domain, and usually this doesn't work, right? So the team must go to the first stage of learning, learn the rules of the game first, try out few experiments in the second stage, and then do the innovation in the third stage, right? So that could be one of the challenges. But you might have observed, right, like this model, there will be a transition happening for a team from the present state into a future state. This is basically a change, right? And this change may not always be comfortable for everyone in the team. So that could be the second challenge. So you may face some people resist these changes when these changes are introduced in some of the processes, right? So my own observation is people tend to resist the change because there could be a fear of failure, right? So these could be some of the challenges that you may face while applying this Shu-Ha-Ri model in your project team. There will be few ways or points using which you can overcome these challenges. So overcoming these challenges could include steps such as doing the proper training and mentoring your project team members. Maybe you can make them aware of this Shu-Ha-Ri model and how it works. It is important, in fact it is imperative, to create a safe and open environment in Agile. This safe and open environment is must for the successful implementation, not only for the Agile projects but also for the implementation of this Shu-Ha-Ri model. Creating an open and safe environment is essential because without the fear of failure, the team can do the experiment, and that is how they will transition from, say, second stage to the third stage of the Shu-Ha-Ri model. uh, and one more thing is, not everything will happen quickly, right? So sometimes in some teams it may happen that the experiments which the team is doing, let's say in the second stage, those experiments may very well fail, and the team may feel that they are simply stuck in the experimental stage only, and they are not able to do further innovations, and they are not able to quickly apply some of the learnings. So that is where, as a servant lead, you probably have to encourage the patience, and encourage the growth mindset, right? You can obviously do that by fostering a culture of experimentation and learning from failures. Okay, so this is probably it for our today's session. So I hope the information which is shared in this session was helpful for you to understand the concept of Shu-Ha-Ri and how it can be applied in the project context. What are some of the challenges that you may face while applying it, and how you can overcome them. So if you find this session useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to this channel. I am planning to add more videos related to the PMI ACP and PMI PMP certification related topics in future. If you have any specific topics which you want more information around, do let me know and I will try to make a video on that. And thank you for watching this session.